Welcome to our brand new webinar, Adapty Deep Dive. I'm Julia, your host for today, and please welcome Mike, our head of sales and Adapty, who is ready to answer all of your questions today at our webinar. So for the past week, we've been collecting your questions, and I will be putting it one by one right in the chat section. And if you will have some questions to me or Mike, feel free to just add them to the Q&A or to the chat section. So Mike, if you just say a few words about what we are doing here and about Adapty itself, it would be super great.
Okie dokie. So everyone, thank you so much for joining the call. Indeed, my name is Mike, and indeed I lead the sales team here at Adapty. Also at Funnel Fox, that's our second product, but we will not discuss it today, most likely. And so just a few words about myself. I joined the company a few years ago. It's been great so far, and I enjoy every day working here and talking to so many great prospects and hopefully helping them become our customers, because we have quite a few. And the purpose of this call of this webinar would be to talk about some specific questions related to Adapty and in-app purchases in general. Hopefully throughout hundreds and hundreds of demos that I've hosted so far, I've collected some knowledge that I would be able to share with you. But if I fail to answer something, then we will take it as our homework and send some follow-ups where we will clarify any questions that you folks potentially have. So before we talk about the specific questions, let me super quickly remind you what is Adapty and why does the product and the company exist? What do we do? So basically, Adapty covers three main pillars. It's all about your in-app purchases, mostly revenue. So first, we help you implement in-app purchases. The second thing, we help you understand your in-app purchases through analytics. And the third case is we help you grow your in-app purchases, specifically through working with your paywalls. And just to set the stage, when we talk about a paywall, it's basically any screen in your app where you offer, when you offer users to make an in-app purchase. And basically, this is the screen where all your effort that you put into your building a beautiful app and all the effort that you put into acquiring those users, they meet each other in this moment of truth. That's why paywalls are so important. And Adapty helps you create paywalls faster, test paywall faster, personalize them, and get great analytics around their performance to make data-driven decisions. So yeah, that's what we do. We assess solution. You simply implement our SDK with a few lines of code. You set up a few technical things, and you have your in-app purchases working, and you can start analyzing them and growing them. And I guess we can jump to the list of questions. We have quite a few.
Yep.
So, yep.
Thank you very much for the quick introduction. We have collected the questions and divided it into several parts. So the first one will be some kind of an overview. And like I just said, I will be posting the questions from our audience right in the chat. So the first one comes from Nikolai. So he's asking, I've just started building my product. At what stage should I be thinking about integrating Adapty?
Yeah, that's a great question. And by the way, I forgot to mention, I'm a bit anxious. That's like my first experience with this thing. So if I stutter and mumble, just please accept my apologies. I'll do my best not to do it. Just started immediately after that. So great question, Nikolai. So when would you implement Adapty? You implement it right before you want to implement in-app purchases in general. And when we're talking about a small app, it makes sense to implement our SDK pretty much immediately, especially when you're just beginning. It literally will take you, I don't know, maybe like 20, 30 minutes to add a few lines, a few methods that we have in our SDK, release it, and so that you will have a SaaS infrastructure working, powering your in-app purchases, making sure that all the technical aspects that are required for your subscriptions to work, or mostly we're talking about subscriptions, will be in place. So the only, like, we only disqualify applications when they don't plan to have in-app purchase at all. Some applications just don't. They will not build to add monetization. But if you even consider adding monetization, it makes sense to implement Adapty pretty much immediately, because again, at early stage, it will be a super straightforward, super fast process. But even at the later stages, it's still quite user friendly. So we developer friendly. We have customers that generate well, big digits, and implementing Adapty still takes maybe a day or two for them. And you can imagine like the volume of testing and all the stuff that they need to go through. But when we're talking about like early stage app, just invest 20-30 minutes into it. We have detailed documentation. We have developer friendly SDK. We have great support in case you need any support. So yeah, just as soon as you can.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you for answering. Next question, does Adapty handle payments directly, or do we need another solution for that?
Well, that depends. Depends on, well, it actually doesn't depend on anything. Adapty doesn't handle payments at all. So this is an important concept that we need to understand. We don't touch money. So when we talk about in-app purchases, this is something that still works through Apple and Google. So Apple charges your user's card. Adapty just knows about it and sits on top of it to make sure that we track every single event about somebody subscribing, unsubscribing, starting a trial, canceling the trial, asking for a refund. We are just like an observer that sits on top of it and knows about all the transaction that happens, which is good news because we are not involved into this. And so you have like less points where something might go not the way it is expected. So if you're and do you need another solution for that? Well, probably not, because when we're talking about in-app purchases, well, Apple and Google has already done quite a great job in order for you to have the payments working. And now you just need an infrastructure to handle these payments and assign appropriate access levels. And this is what Adapty does from the infrastructure point of view. But yeah, just an important concept that we always highlight: we don't touch money, we just know about things happening.
Okay, thank you. You just mentioned actually that we collect the information about whether the user subscribes on or unsubscribes, and that actually relates to one of my questions from Sabine. Will we be able to see a detailed history of each user, like when they subscribed, cancel, or renew that subscription?
Right. Yeah. So another great question. So yes, you will be, though we would need to double check, and I'll probably show the dashboard a bit later, because we have a profile section for your users. So basically, from technically speaking, when the user downloads the application with our SDK and launches for the first time, programmatically speaking, what happens, we initialize the SDK and we create the profile. And this profile is by default is just like a random ID with digits and numbers, but it is associated with their store, like Apple and Google stored purchase history. And so basically, when the user has a history, you can go to a profile and see all the renewals, all the trials, cancellations, and stuff like that. Important thing here is that, as I mentioned, by default, we just create a random ID that it cannot be identified. So that we respect all the regulations and don't collect any PII, but you still can. You can still utilize your custom IDs. So, like for example, maybe you're using emails and you ask for an email during your onboarding flow, and you can associate this email with the Adapty profile, and this email become indexed, meaning that you can search for it. And so why it can be important, for example, your user is not sure about their current subscription state, or maybe they think that something is wrong, and so you can ask for their email, go to Adapty dashboard, search for this email, find this user, and see all the history related to in-app purchases. and it will help you, well, provide a great experience to your user. And we even have a specific support role within our dashboard, so that your support team can only have access to this segment without like seeing your revenue data and other things that you might be not so comfortable sharing with specific teams, but they can go to this profile section and find these users, see the history, and hopefully help them with whatever they're asking.
Yeah, cool. I think we'll take a look at the profile just a little bit later. So moving on, we've got a question from Joshua Frank. Joshua, if you're here, then hi. Thank you for a question. I have a suite of apps, and I would like to have a single subscription that can be purchased from any app to allow premium access to all of the apps. Is that possible?
It is. Though there are different ways of how you can do that. So probably the most straightforward one would be to utilize, like for example, when talking about Apple, they have a concept. I think it's called app bundling app, something about this. And so the idea is that you can create a bundle of apps that will share the same subscription with the same price handled by Apple. And Adapty works with this approach. And so basically a user will make a purchase within one app and will have access to premium features among all the apps that are associated to this bundle. And Adapty will be the source of truth for this access level. So the only important thing you need to make sure that like technically speaking, when you set up Adapty at obviously each of these applications should have Adapty implemented. And in the dashboard, you have all the products with appropriate access levels being added. And what will happen when the user downloads another app from this bundle, and we will just automatically restore the purchases, and there will be a purchase that associated to the bundle. So it should be a seamless experience. This is like the most straightforward way that works pretty much out of the box. However, you can, if you have some kind of something specific, some kind of logic of how exactly you would want to share some specific access levels between your users, this is also doable. And Adapty will be a great solution for this, because we have what we call server-side APIs, which means that you can do some little scripting and send API calls to Adapty saying, hey, this user should have this access level for this period of time, based on your some internal backend logic. But that's for those cases where you have some complicated logic. If we're just talking about like having few apps just controlled by Apple, that's something that you can probably implement very, very fast.
Yeah, I actually don't think that it is something common. So this question isn't something common, but yeah, good to know that we have the option to work with this. So the next question, moving us forward to the next part of our questions, it is about data and analytics. So the first question is pretty simple. Can we import our existing data into Adapty?
Yes, you absolutely can. And so there's actually like two ways of how data that has been generated before the Adapty implementation can come into Adapty. So the first path that doesn't require anything from your end is that when a user, as I mentioned, when they keep updating to the application with our SDK, we will automatically restore the purchases. And when we're talking about Apple, we will restore all the whole history of this user purchases, even if it's like 5 years of renewals, trials, and cancellations, and what have you. And we will retroactively show them in the analytics. Obviously, for those users that don't upgrade to the latest version of your app with our SDK, that's not something that we would do, which is not a big deal. We're more focused on like the future and getting more revenue rather than worrying about what happened 5 years ago. Still, it's always great to have some data that you can that you can take a look at. So for this purpose, we actually have a process that is called a historical import. And what it means is that you can provide us with a CSV file that contains just a few columns that we need to import. And we will grab this data and add into your Adapty account. It's a straightforward process. The only thing that I want to highlight is that in some cases, companies just don't store this data. In this case, well, obviously you would not be able to do anything. But if you have your backend where you store receipts or original transaction IDs, or you, in case of Google, you store tokens, you can easily provide them with a simple file. We will upload them to Adapty, and what it will do is that it will show you historical data and analytics in our charts and cohorts and other parts of it, but also it will create Adapty profiles for all these users, which is also convenient. But this process is not mandatory. We have tons of customers who just start with Adapty fresh and still enjoying the product without doing the historical import.
Do you have some kind of internal insights of how many of our clients just start from the scratch?
Well, I would say the majority. The reason why is because, as I mentioned, in a lot of cases there is simply no data to be imported. It hasn't been stored, and unfortunately, you cannot just like go to your App Store or Play Store and press one button to download this data. But also, again, that's it's a nice to have thing, but it doesn't really affect the business and your growth plans and stuff like that. So, and well, some customers just don't know that we can do this, which we also fix in with all our announcement and all our documentation. But yeah, we're always happy to do this import for you as long as you provide us with just a few columns in a simple file.
Great. Thank you so much. The next question is connected with my favorite, my paying taxes and commissions. Can Adapty show us revenue after taxes, commissions, and other fees? Doesn't account for the different commission rates between platforms and the taxes across countries.
Sure, and that's actually a great segue into me showing the dashboard, because it will make even more sense when I talk about it. So I assume that everybody should be able to see my screen, and just in case, I want to welcome you to Adapty and to my demo account that I use for demos. And to answer the question, so in our analytics, we can show you the data the way you prefer. What I mean is that we can show you the gross revenue. So basically, it's before any commissions, before any taxes, before anything. We can show you this data after the store commission. And remember, in case you fall into the small business program, then you pay 15%. In case you do not, you're not eligible for this program, then you pay 30%. And we calculate it automatically. Well, almost automatically. You need to put some settings, but then we do it automatically. And what we also can do, we can show you like almost the final revenue after the commissions and after the taxes. So we are able to get this data from the server notifications that we receive from Apple and Google. And this is how we are able to show you pretty much what you will get to your bank account whenever the store will be paying to you. Another important thing that it is not part of this question, but I also want to highlight, is that we also track and consider currencies. So that's another important thing, because a lot of apps sell in different countries with local currencies. So we have a solution in place that tracks up-to-date currency rates. We update them every several hours. And so when you go to Adapty dashboard, you see the revenue in USD dollars, but it would be very, very close to the real number, because we consider all the latest currency exchange rates.
Okay, thank you so much. Next question from Philip. Hi, Philip. How does your LTV modeling work? How accurate it is, and what's the maximum prediction period you offer? Oh, I think we are talking about LTV predictions here.
All right. So yeah, because we do calculate LTV in general, like a current LTV or historical LTV. But yeah, I also assume this question's more about our, well, sort of a killer feature about our prediction. So what we have is we have machine learning in place. The solution that we've released, I think it's more than a year now, maybe a year and a half, quite some time ago. And this machine learning, we've been training it and feeding it with tons of data in order for it to be able to build predictions. So we do understand not we, not I, at least, it understands and can expect a certain a certain volume of renewals, of subscription cancellation, of refunds, and all these things that together end up with the final revenue that you get. And so how it works, well, like right now I'm showing our cohorts, and we can group our cohorts by days, weeks, months, and quarters and years. And right now we're looking at monthly cohorts. And let's take a look, for example, at April 2024. So this is the data that we currently have. But these two purple-ish columns, they show future pretty much. And so what it means is that we predict that in the next 12 months, this cohort will generate this amount in revenue, and the LTV of users by April 2025 will be this. And we can build predictions up to 3, 6, 9, and 12 months. What you also can do, you can apply a filter by country. So we can build predictions for certain countries, and you can filter it by products. So we can build prediction for your weekly subscriptions and for your monthly subscription. We're currently actively working on expanding the range of data that this machine learning, let's call it AI, so AI is everywhere, so technically speaking, it's still ML. So this tool would be able to respect even more filters, but the work is in progress, and I don't want to do any spoilers right now. We will release it, and you will see for yourself. Important thing about this prediction, so you probably can see that this number is sort of gray, while these are black. What it means is that Adapty is confident, 90+% confident in these numbers, but for this cohort, it is currently too small, and the volume of data is just not enough for us to build the accurate prediction, as this tooltip here says. But as it gets a bit more data, then it becomes black, and we will be confident. Again, 90+% accurate. We've done a lot of testing, so we are confident in the confidence of these predictions. We also have predictions for A/B testing of paywalls, but it's a bit of a separate thing. But we can touch base it during this section or these sections that are scheduled for the future. Let me double check the question. How accurate is it? Yeah, I think it covers the question.
I already have one more question in the Q&A section. Can we use predictions as a startup?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, well, the thing is, there are two sort of things for you to consider. So the first one is the one that I mentioned. So the volume should be sufficient. And for the app that has just started, has just like a few subscribers paying, I don't know, a few hundreds or a few thousand per month, our ML will just not have enough data to make predictions, most likely. Again, it really depends, and from app to app, it varies, but Most likely for a startup, the predictions might just not work. And even if they would, it might be a bit of an overkill because it's a kind of advanced analytics that just might be a bit not necessarily at the stage of a very early startup. Right. And it'll also include in our Pro Plus subscription, which is something that I also want to highlight in order to for us to be on the same page. And Pro Plus is a great offer for a bit of a bigger apps, but for a startup, we do have a startup program actually. But predictions are just not the best fit, and there are so many things that you can focus at your early stage of your app rather than doing some such in-depth analysis.
Yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
it should cover the question.
Okay, so next question, actually, it is my favorite because I personally do love what analytics about paywalls do we cover. So the question is, what kind of paywall analytics do you collect?
Yeah, well, we collect quite a few. So this section that I'm showing right now, this analytics, it has charts, LTV, cohorts, funnels, retention, conversion. It gives you like the picture of what is happening with your in-app events, in-app purchase events from like 360-degree overview. But for paywalls, we have dedicated analytics, and we have even several places in our dashboard where you can have a lot of numbers related to your paywalls. So let me give you an example. For example, when we talk about placements, so it's an important concept that we have in Adapty, and it gives you tons of flexibility when we talk about paywalls. It's like, well, places in your app where you can show different paywalls to your different segments of your users, and within each, like just an example. So you have an onboarding placement, like the first paywall that users see, the most important one based on our numbers. But you also can have a paywall somewhere in the settings, or a paywall that is triggered based on some your internal logic. So for each, you can have your specific placement, and each placement will have its own analytics, and each paywall within the placement will have its own analytics. As you can see, we track a lot, all these views, unique views, refunds, cancellations, well, purchases, obviously. We calculate our PPU and all the good stuff. And again, for each paywall in each placement, for each A/B test in each placement, we do collect a lot of data. And when we're talking about A/B testing, it's even more advanced. So for each A/B test, for each payroll in each A/B test, for each product in each payroll in each A/B test, we collect a lot of data, and then we analyze it and give you we pretty much give you like 3 columns that you need to pay attention to make a decision, like was the theory that you were checking with this test, did it work out? And you cannot just say, hey, we generated more revenue with first paywall from the first purchases, meaning that this paywall is better. It's way more complicated, and that's why Adapty considers a lot of moving parts so that you can make, again, data-driven decision. That was a very long answer to like, do we have analytics for paywalls? Yeah, we do, and we do have quite a lot of it.
Yeah, we do. Thank you so much. And we'll come back to A/B tests a bit later. Right now, the next question is, can I export data to other tools like Google Cloud?
Yeah. Well, I assume it's Google Cloud Storage, so you can.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. So when we're talking about, and it's typically called an ETL expert, so something that happens once in some period of time, like overnight, for example, in case of ETL integration. So we do have integration with Google Cloud Storage. We do have integration with Amazon S3. So basically all the events that we tracked within the last 24 hours, sorry, we can send to your buckets, and then you can use them in your internal BIs if you, for whatever reason, want to use an internal BI, or for any other purchases, maybe just for you to store them, because some companies prefer to store data just in case. But we also send real-time webhooks and integration events to those integrations that we work with. We can send data to your to any webhook. Somebody subscribes, and immediately we fire a webhook to your backend, so you can have this data there as well. We send it to MMPs like AppsFlyer and Just for you to have correct and real-time data there. We can send it to analytical tools like Amplitude, because it's also useful in some cases. So yeah, your data is not locked with an adapter by any means, because it's your data, and it can be exported into multiple places at the same time.
And please remind me, do our integrations work on all our plans?
Not exactly, actually. So we do have a free plan, right? So you can implement subscriptions with Adapty without paying us a single penny. Integrations are not included there, but typically you don't need integrations at like the first few weeks or months of your app being released. Then we have a pro subscription, and for a pro subscription, you have all of them but these two as free and Google Cloud Storage, and Pro Plus includes everything.
Cool. Thank you. Moving on to the next part about paywalls and experiments. So the question from Pavel Martinov. Hi, Pavel. I've already designed a paywall for my app. Can I use my own design, or do I need to use your builder?
Yeah, you absolutely can. You absolutely can work with what's called them like native paywalls. The paywalls has been created outside of Adapty. So obviously with the paywall builder that we have, I think I have it in this tab. You can create beautiful paywalls in a matter of like, I don't know, like 10 minutes, maybe 15. You can create something like this. But if for whatever reason you prefer, at least for now, to stick to the paywalls that you create outside of Adapty, that's perfectly fine. And we have a number of customers who still prefer to use it this way. Again, it's perfectly fine. And in this case, what you can do, you can use what we call remote config. Technically speaking, it's just a JSON with any parameters and any values that you add. There are no limitation apart from the size, but the size is huge, so it should fit whatever you need. And so basically how it works, you create a paywall, say in Figma or what have you, and then you decide what parts of this paywall you want to control in the Adapty dashboard, so you can still modify them and test them without building a new version of your app, without going through the release process. And yeah, that's still an effective way. And if you do it following this approach, you're still able to utilize our placements. You're still able to utilize our targeting with showing different paywalls, your native paywalls to your users, and you're still able to do A/B tests of these paywalls. And what you can do, by the way, you can A/B test your paywall. Well, they're all your paywalls. Your native paywall versus a paywall that you create in Adapty Builder. It might be a good reason for you to consider switching to our paywall builder, because it will save so much time. But again, we don't absolutely force you to use our paywall builder. Feel free to use your in-house paywalls.
Still a good way to test.
No, absolutely. Again, we have a lot of customers doing it this way.
Yeah, that sounds great. So the next question, can I set where paywalls appear in the app directly from Adapty?
Well, yes and no. So as I mentioned, this concept of a placement, this is one of the few things that you actually need to hard code. So when you set up a placement, it has an ID, and this ID is something that you need to, technically speaking, to call via our SDK method. And so you decide like in which places of your app and following which logic they should appear, and then you call for it. For an ID, and then Adapty tells, hey, okay, this user should see this paywall, and this user should see this A/B test. So these placements, that you can modify them from the dashboard, but you would unless with some specific workarounds, you would not be able to change the logic, the code of your app with these placements. So, but you typically don't need to do them. Don't need to change placement too often. So you still would have your release cycle with all the features that you release or like some fixes that you release, and you can just schedule adding another placement or two in the next release. But that still happens once in a blue moon, and so in the majority of cases you have like this number of placement, and you work with them from the dashboard. That doesn't require any code level changes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Is it possible to display paywalls in different languages? Oh, also my favorite, based on the user's region. I think we're talking about localization here.
We do, but not only actually.
Mhm.
So if we jump back to our, for example, paywall builder, let me still show you because it's so awesome. Let me just, and again, we use the word template. We probably should rename it to something like an example, because
Examples.
these are examples of what you can build using our builder with all the elements that you pretty much drag and drop and you can move them around, but it doesn't answer the question. This thing does. So you can add locales to the paywall you create and configure them separately. What it will do is that this specific paywall will be shown to people with different locales on their phones based on this configuration. However, when we're talking about geographical stuff, this is something a bit different. So what we can do is that you can introduce different paywalls to different regions, not just like it's not just I translate this one. I can show very different paywalls to people from the US comparing to people from, I don't know, from the UK as an example. So Adapty works both with these things. So you can have localization within a paywall, but what you also can do, you can have multiple paywalls for different regions. And regions is just one way of how you split your audience into segments. Though is probably the most popular one and the most obvious one.
Yeah, I do love it also. So the question about the A/B testing. Can we run A/B tests targeting gender, age, etc.?
Yeah, so that's actually a great segue from the previous question. So as I mentioned, when we talk about segments, okay, let me jump there. So in Adapty, you can introduce multiple segments, and these segments can be based on multiple attributes. It can be something standard, like, you know, the country example that we just discussed, or it can be something also standard, like a device. So you show different paywalls to people on different devices for whatever reason. It can be based on attribution data. So we can pull data from your MMP, like AppsFlyer or Adjust or Branch or others. We can pull data directly from Apple Search Ads, and so that you can build a segment of people coming through a specific keyword, and then you show them a very specific paywall that should resonate better. And what you can also do, you can use custom attributes. So in case of my demo environment, it's a sort of a fitness app, and within the onboarding flow, I ask how many pull-ups a user can do, and based on this answer, I can show a paywall that should resonate better with those who can do a lot of pull-ups or maybe zero pull-ups. Obviously, if your app is VPN, probably you don't care about the number of pull-ups your users can do. But the idea is that you can provide these custom attributes to Adapty, any custom attributes, and use them to split audience into these segments and show them a very specific paywall. And it's a great idea because the more personalization you add, the better the conversion. It just resonates better with your users, and they are more willing to start a trial or to make a purchase.
Actually, one more question regarding A/B tests. So let's just jump on here. How many paywalls can I test at the same time?
Well, technically speaking, as many as you want. Like literally, you can have multiple placements that we've just discussed, and within each placement, you can have multiple segments and showing different A/B tests to different segments within different placements. The only sort of limitation that you need to consider is the volume of users that you have, because in order for your A/B test to be successful, or at least to answer like, was it successful, you need to have enough views, you need to have enough purchases and all these similar events. And so if you I don't know, if you have 10,000 users in your app while having 10,000 paywalls, well, technically speaking, I guess it's doable, but it would be probably a bad idea. But again, in theory, you can run as many paywall experiments in parallel as you want.
I have the last one answered previously. It's from Alina Dmitrieva. Hello, Alina. Can we test pricing through A/B tests before setting the final price in the App Store?
Well, yeah, that's a tricky one. So, can you run pricing experiments with Adapty? Yes, you can. But we need to understand the how exactly it works. So basically, when we're talking about comparing prices, technically speaking, we're talking about comparing products. So for example, you have a weekly subscription that costs $5 and you have a weekly subscription that costs $7. So in Adapty, you just set up two identical paywalls, but they have these two different products. You run an A/B test, and with all this mathematics that we have and predictions and all these things, you can have a good understanding, like, is it a good idea to sell at a higher price or at a lower price? However, an important concept that I need to highlight when we talk about products, you still set up them at Apple or Google side. There is no workaround for it. And if in this example you have a weekly subscription, two weekly subscriptions for different prices, you need to create and pass a review for each of these products first. And once you have these products in place, then you simply add them to Adapty. It's a super straightforward process. You just copy the ID, set up the period, the access level. It's just a matter of a few clicks. And after that, you can run as many experiments as you want with these products, and thus with different prices. But there is a mandatory requirement for you to set up them at the store level first. So to answer this question, probably no. So can we test pricing? Yes. Can we price them before setting the final price? No, you already set up the products. So it's basically when you run this experiment, then you just decide, okay, I don't want to show a lower price to users, but you already have them in App Store. This is an important concept that I want us to be on the same page related to this concept.
Yep, sounds fair. Thank you so much. I have one last question from the Q&A section, and it's some kind of an off-top here. Can your team provide guidance on subscription strategies and pricing?
Well, we don't need a screen for this, I guess. So again, to set the expectations. So first of all, Adapty is a solution. It's a tool that you can easily implement and use. But however, we are very interested in your growth. Not only because we're such a great people, but also because our business model relies on the growth of our customers. So we do have a real interest in your success. And that's why we have a success team. And so the success team is a set of experts that know a lot, probably even more than I do. Well, even more, just more than I do. And we also have what we call a growth program. It's when we set up a call with a company and with an app, and we provide with the recommendations that we've collected over the course of these years to help you grow a bit faster. It's not a silver bullet by any means, and it's not a replacement for all your user acquisition and for your marketing. No, but we have a few tips and tricks that we can share and maybe take a look at your paywalls to give you some example of how to use Adapty more effectively. So yeah, this is something that we're always open to. Just give us, send us an email and let us know that this is something that you would like to participate in, and we'll make sure that we'll organize something like this.
I think this is it. Thank you very much, Mike, for being with us today. And thanks to all of you for being with us here.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.